Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Hope everybody is doing good on this Wednesday, this wonderful Wednesday. We've had some great weather, a lot going on in the world of public education, and just really looking forward to talking about some great topics today. We'll talk about some of the articles that we've seen in the Tennessean that talks about English language learners and how they read. And it was some really good strategies and just wondering how we apply that to the district. We'll talk about the education funding formula. As Sonia did an interview at Fox 17 last night, we'll vet what are some of the top education issues that you see not only in Nashville but across the country. Definitely want to have a moment of silence that we'll start with for the driver involving the Metro school bus. And then we'll give a shout out to parents who attended our training and also get excited about our graduation this Saturday. How you doing today, Sonia?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
It is a wonderful day, wonderful day. A lot to talk about in the land of public education.
Man, what you said, it's always something, and we're just asking God to give us some good things to talk about. You know, there is a lot going on. So
Yes.
that's my prayer.
Yeah, and so if we can do a moment of silence today, if you haven't seen, early this morning there was a bus driver accident and someone ended up losing their life. I think it wasn't the kid or the bus driver. I think the parent came to get the kid, but just wanted to do a quick moment of silence. Okay, thank you for that. And so today, Sonya, we'll jump right into it. I see we got Miss Moffitt on here who says good morning. We got Miss Nicole Chrisman. And I think today, why I can come to the call excited, two of these parents were on our monthly campaign call last night and just really fired up, not about the things that we have done, just not about the things we've done this year, but really about the possibility and the opportunity for 2022 as we think about how do we start the new school semester, really doing things that impact children across the whole district collectively.
Yeah, and that's wonderful to hear from these parents, to hear their excitement, to put them to action.
Mm-hmm.
Is the most rewarding thing. And I'm excited about the parents that we've worked with over this year. I'm excited about the power that we're building with these parents, and just know that this work is nothing without you.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I'm sharing it out. I see we got Thomas up here. We got Danielle. But Sonya, one of the things that I want to jump into, and we'll start this conversation, but want to hear a little bit of your perspective before we go into the video, is a large conversation. You know, what I've been saying personally, masks and vaccines are the smoke screen, right? Like, people got opinions. I think it's super important, but it's not more important than some of the topics that are on the table now. And as we think about student funding, as we think about this thing they call BEP, Basic Education Program, and how they fund schools across the whole state. You had an interview yesterday, and what were some of your thoughts on the interview and just the topic itself?
So I want to give some context around what's really going on with funding in the state of Tennessee. There are about 4 or 5 states, and that's to include Tennessee, that have not been funding education like other states. And as a matter of fact, there's an article that I read about how oppressive the funding has been here in this state and those surrounding states. And I'm just going to stick to the state that I know the state is, right, the state in which I live in. And so the reporter wanted to speak with a representative from our organization to represent families. She shout out to Jackie. She felt like we're very in tune to the education issues around the state in this country, and looks to us to speak on behalf of parents. And so shout out to Jackie at Fox 17. But let's talk about what the real issue is about a BEP formula. Is a formula the problem, or is the outcome what you really want to think about? And you got to know what you want to happen, what you want to be true,
Mm-hmm.
what you envision, so that your plan to get there is the correct plan, the correct formula, has the right people, the right amount of money, the right resource, the right support. And until we know where we want to go in education here in the state of Tennessee, nothing that we do is going to work. We've got to do things differently than what we've done before so that we can have great outcomes. They always say the insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. And so we have to do things different. And that's what we talked about last night.
Yeah. And I'll say, I mean, I liken it to my electric bill, right? If my electric bill is usually $150 and it balloons to $300, I'm not going to keep paying the $300. I'm going to figure out what's going wrong and my electric bill is double and figure it out instead of continuing to throw money. And in my opinion, when I look at how we fund our school system, it's really based on the system. And then I also look at what we talk about a lot, like outcomes, like academically, like how are kids leaving a school system and being able to thrive in the world? And if they're not, why are we funding at such a high level if we don't have the real outcomes? And so I just think this is a conversation that needs to be had. I would love you guys' opinion, but I always say, like, our budget is $1.1 billion. And when I think about Metro Nashville Public Schools, and you look at let's say 7 years ago, we were at $500 million and we had 79,000 kids. And fast forward to 2021, we're at 82,000 and we're at 1.1. But our buildings, the cost doesn't go up because we own those buildings. It's set in stone. Teacher pay hasn't gone up in years, right? Like insurance premiums can go up periodically. But when you look at an extra $500 million, you know, somebody broke it down, like where does the money go? And so
wait a minute, but they said teacher pay has gone up. So wait a minute, in Metro Nashville, they said the highest paying teachers now in state of Tennessee. So I want to make sure we get our message right with that, because that's what they said. So we're gonna repeat what they said.
So teacher pay has gone up this year for clarity, but in the last 7 years, as the budget has went from $500 million to 1.1, teacher pay didn't go up.
Right.
And so you ask yourself, what are the things that we spend money on in the school system? And there are a lot of things. It's teachers, it's insurance benefits, it's the classroom, like helping students, it's transportation, it is food services. But a lot of those costs are not fixed, but they don't balloon that high. And so I'm gonna play the interview, and then I'll love some feedback from you guys as you watch this, and really let us know what you think about the interview. Okay, there it is. Let me take this off.
This study comes after state leaders announced the need to overhaul the state's education funding system. Now, the report looks at how Tennessee compares to the rest of the country in education funding, and turns out the state is unique, and not in a good way.
Tennessee's school funding formula under a microscope. A new study shows just how different the state's education funding is from most of the country.
We have the most complicated funding formula in the country. Literally nobody's does what ours does.
Beacon Center Director of Policy Ron Schultes says the state uses close to 50 different factors to calculate how much funding a school should get, unlike most states in the country that simply give a flat rate per student.
So for example, Georgia, right, you can find out exactly how much is funded per student at every school on one page that's put out by their state Department of Education. Anybody can look at it and understand it. Meanwhile, here in the state of Tennessee, it's this complicated annual report that's put out that's included with over like 60 tables that's put out by the Department of Education.
The report says the state could be a leader in education funding if it adopted a student-based funding instead of resource-based. I reached out to the State Department of Education, who tells me state leaders are in the process of exploring a student-centered funding strategy for Tennessee schools right now. They're consulting policymakers across the state, meeting with subcommittees, and hosting town halls to meet with local families. like parent Sonia Thomas, who helped organize one of those forums last month.
What we're doing right now is not working. It is not working for any of our children.
Thomas says Tennessee students deserve better, and that starts with funding at schools.
We've got to do things differently, or we're going to have the same outcomes that we've always had, and that's subpar and bottom of the barrel.
State leaders are expected to announce their new funding plans early next year.
The report says one of the biggest downsides to Tennessee's funding program is that it assumes every district has the same needs, whether it's a metro area or a rural school district. Reporting live in downtown now.
All right. And just the gist of that, and please send feedback. But Sonia, as you hear that, I think the title of it was complicated and outdated. Let me try to remember. It said, complicated and outdated.
Yeah.
And how did that interview come about?
There was a tweet that put on there. I don't remember exactly. I know with the tweet she reached out. I think, but I don't think it's that. I think it's the organizing and the building of a movement that we've done that leads to our voices being amplified and being unafraid to speak truth to power and being unafraid to, and not just me, it's the parents in the movement, being unafraid to speak up for our children. I mean, shout out to one of our parents who did an interview yesterday that'll come out soon, who just finished our fellowship, who was unafraid to speak out. And that's where it comes from. It comes from building a movement of parents. And, you know, that's the bottom line. But, you know, the title complicated, you know, it's just not an excuse. You know, life is complicated. Everything is complicated.
Everything is complicated.
For everyone, but we cannot allow complications to deter us from making sure that these children are successful. The children are not complications.
Yeah, it's really simple when you think about kids. It's, you know, and it's an article that we'll bring up. It really discusses how you have English language learners who most of these kids are learning English as a second language, are really progressing. And then, you know, you read these reports and you realize like they have a targeted plan that's showing great achievement in such a short time. And so you look at student funding for systems instead of outcomes, and you realize why some things never change. Because if you don't have to do the work, why would you? If you don't have to have the accountability, like, why would you?
And Christine says, so we need to start electing our folks to the State Board of Education. And to her point, like, we're a nonpartisan organization. We don't tell people who to vote for, but you have to really think about the people who are making the decision. The formula is not the problem, guys. Like, I want to really get you focused. A formula cannot be created by itself. There are people who create the formula, there are people who make these decisions, and we got to have the right people making the decisions so that the formula creates outcomes for our children. And the missing piece of that puzzle is not the formula. It's those who are making the decisions, those who are not looking at the fact that a rural area versus a metro area has different needs, and one may have more needs than the other, and not creating formulas that are not equitable. That is where the problem is. So I don't want everybody to get hung up just on the formula itself. We got to put pressure on those who are making the decision to make sure that it's inclusive, it has vision, and it has outcomes and receipts.
That whole part right there. And doing that research, you saw that it was based on a system of like, how do you keep the rural places up? And I think it started with good intentions, like equity. They were talking about equity back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, with how do you have equity in comparison to the urban services versus the rural services. But yeah, we got to figure out it's bigger than the funding, is really getting into the nitty gritty.
Man, how do you talk about equity when you have not even needed equity? Come on, church. Say what I got to say. If you ain't never needed no equity, you can't talk your shit about equity. I don't mean no harm. Like if equity, the need for equity is not at your doorstep, you can't talk to me. So you have to have the parents at the table who have the children who need the equity, because we're going to be able to bring to life what's really happening in our neighborhood. If you ain't never experienced that, then how can you make decisions for people? If you're not listening to the very people who need the equity, then how can you make the decisions about what's equitable? You don't know what you're talking about. It's like being a gangster rapper and you ain't got a bit of gangster in your blood. You don't know what it looked like. You don't know what it smelled like, but you're gonna gangster rap.
But you can start talking about it. You can mimic what you see others do, but you will never understand
get it right.
and get to the level where it's impactful. Or if somebody challenged you on your credentials, you wouldn't be able to show it. And I mean, that's a good point, Sonya, when we think about some of the laws that are being made, some of the policies that are being passed on a local, state, and federal level. Like, what's the credibility? How do you make sure you have empathy or understand what's going on in the communities that you're looking to serve? And a lot of times you just don't get that.
No, you don't. And as Sarah Carpenter always said, you got to have love. Like you can't not hate a people, a race, or thing. Like, if anything, you can hate poverty, and you can hate low literacy rates, and you can hate the fact that people are struggling. Like, hate those things, but you can't bring, you can't even bring your all of your own point of view into these conversations. Because like I said, if you ain't done a thing, you can't do a thing. You can't make a decision about that. It's just like Thanksgiving next week. Let me bring it home for some
Okay, come on now.
And you inviting people over, and you tell your cousin Sheila to make some dressing, and Sheila ain't never made no dressing. Talking about she don't even like dressing. I don't even like dressing, but you gonna tell her to make. She don't know what it tastes like. She don't know what's supposed to go in there, because she don't like it. She don't even know who to ask. Like, what's the recipe? She on the internet scrolling through, getting all kinds of recipes. She looking for stuffing dressing, and we a stuffing recipe, and we won't dress it. That's what we talking about. I hope that brought it home for somebody.
Yeah, especially as we get close to Thanksgiving. Is how do you make sure you understand the community that you seek to support? And Thanksgiving is a good point, because it ain't for everybody to make the food. It ain't. Everybody can't bring the soul food to the table just because you went through the ingredients.
That's right. That's right. And you don't even eat it. You don't even eat dressing. And you talking about, well, hey, yeah, I'm gonna make it. I don't like dressing, but I'm gonna make some. Baby, you don't even know what it tastes like. Ain't nobody gonna be successful at Thanksgiving. Ain't nobody gonna be full, because we gonna throw that dressing away.
Man, it's gonna be on the plate, and the dog gonna eat it with no dogs. The dog is gonna eat it. Ain't the dog inside. It's the first thing that comes to your mind. Root has ate it.
Carson gonna do like this.
Yep.
He never had it before.
Yep. His kids ain't got no filter. But I'm gonna tell you, son, I had a really good conversation with a guy. Was having dinner, and I don't know how we got to talking, but he told me, he was like, he was SGA president at U of M, and he got a chance to serve on the Tennessee Board of Regents. And that's when they were doing like the tuition cap, right? They were saying, well, if you take more than 12 hours, you got to pay for those additional credits. And he was like, well, as a college student, I'm in college right now. Shoot, some semesters I might want to take 21 because I got to get out of here so I can afford it. And long story short, one of the people on the Board of Regents said, hey, whenever we make a vote, we have a long discussion, but at the end of the day, whatever the majority is what we do as a consensus. So it's 18 of us on here, and we all vote the same way. And he looked at the guy and said, again, I represent on this board of regents 200,000 college students. He was like, it's no way I can vote for this tuition cap because it affects the people I represent. He said it passed 17-1, and the guy came back to him and said, I wish I had the same courage as you.
Mm.
And what that told me, that's what we are missing in this world. That's what we're missing in our education system and beyond. Like courage to do the real things that we know are important. It's not hard to look at a student and realize that they have been neglected academically, socially, emotionally, culturally. Like that's not hard to see. But I guess it's difficult to have the courage to move past the fear and do what's right by kids.
Have you ever heard of fight and flight?
Mm-hmm.
Fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
Fight or flight is a mechanism that happens to your body. Let's just say there's certain type of trauma, or even if you are afraid of something, and you have dopamine and all these chemicals that are made up in the brain. Yeah, I'm a science girl.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm a science girl. You got all these chemicals in your brain that tells your body what to do. Like, am I gonna fight? Meaning, am I gonna fight for my life? Whether it's I'm gonna breathe, I'm gonna push through this fear, or am I going to flight?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, am I going to shut down? There's mechanisms that even when anxiety, your body, your whole system can shut down if you get so much panic in your body. Yeah. It'll just automatically shut down. And I don't know if anybody's ever had that to happen to me, but it's happened to them before, but I've had it happen to me. Have a panic attack and your systems, you stop breathing, everything happens to you. And so when you are in a situation such as we are with our kids, we have to determine if we're going to fight or we're going to flight. Mm-hmm. Are we going to push through the fear of speaking out or speaking truth to power, or even sometimes it's learning more, right? Or even sometimes it's saying, I don't know what to do, but if you show me, I will. Mm-hmm. Like that's an example of fight or flight. Flight is, you know what? It is what it is. You know, it could be ain't no problem, or I'm just not going to do nothing because it's just, I'm just not going to do nothing. Mm-hmm. And I think for the most part, the families that we deal with, I would say 99.9% are in two categories. I'm going to fight, or I want to fight, and I just don't know what to do. But you show me, I'll fight.
Yeah, but I think what makes it different and what we do realize, right? Like the fight or flight is real. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times when you're by yourself, and you're alone and you don't have the support or your people with you,
that's right,
it gets lonely, right?
It does. Mm-hmm.
But I think what we're able to show parents is where there's 2, there can be 4. Where there's 4, there could be 8, 16, and more, right? And then you start to realize when you come together for an issue and we're all aligned, one message, one voice, it's hard for others to fight because they're not as big as us, right? Most bullies are bigger than the people they bully, right? Yeah. And so when you have the numbers, when you have parents who understand what's going on, who can stand on it and speak about it, the challenge and the tides are turned. And I think that's what we're looking at. Like, a couple of parents have been reaching out. I think Torvis introduced me to a parent who they were about to suspend the student and essentially saying, hey, like she did pepper spray or something. And the student was like, no, we ain't done it. And so Torvis and I reaching out to the school, like we're supporting this family because we want to see what's really going on. It made them go back and really look at the camera, right? And then they rescinded the suspension and gave an apology. But I think that parent, when she called us saying it was a fight or flight, she was like, look, I'm just sick of this. And she really didn't have an option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And oftentimes we're backed into those corners, right? Like these are our babies we're talking about. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know how many of y'all done had the attitude. I know I got the attitude, but nobody messing with my baby.
Right. Right.
They don't want this smoke. Them my babies.
Mm.
Now that don't mean that my babies can just do anything they want to do, but they got a mama that's gonna always be there, supportive, and people gonna recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
Because oftentimes people try to basically shame our parents,
Yeah.
and they shame them into flight.
Yeah. Yeah. I consistently see people put stuff on. One lady was like, "Oh, like if your kid got $200 shoes on, $1,000 phone, and such, and then not learning, it was like it's your fault."
Wait a minute. Add on there. Then you should be able to buy a computer.
Mm.
Remember, that was the going trend, the memes a lot of teachers were saying last year. I'm sorry. I had to add that one. I thought maybe you forgot that.
Yeah, but I think the question with that, what does a computer do if you never know how to operate it? If you don't got things that's teaching a student, just having it is just not enough. Just having it is not enough.
John, you just busted me in the belly with that one.
Yeah. But that was another conversation. Then I know I want to talk about the English language learners and kind of that plan. But the gentleman also said, he was a teacher for 8 years. He was a math teacher. He has the highest growth in the state for math. I think it was 6th grade math. He was like, I failed math when I was a kid. He was like, what made me a really good math teacher is I had a passion for the kids, and I spent every opportunity I had trying to grow them, and not just with his particular knowledge, but just figuring out ways to make it fun and for the kids to grow. And then we just talked about, well, why don't our schools have this same level of success? And then it started to go systemic. He was like, well, there's schools in Nashville that create curriculum and pathways related to what's going on in their city, right? And then there's other schools that just do the status quo. What we did 10 years ago is what we do today. And he was like, that's the issue. There's no challenge to really challenge the inner city or those priority schools. But he said, if you look at any good school academically in Nashville, they have a curriculum that's catered to what's going on in the world, whether it's finance, whether it's healthcare, whether it's anything like tech. People are moving to Nashville when you think about Amazon and Oracle, and those schools are making sure their students benefit. They're going above and beyond.
Man, don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
What do I always say? Low expectations or instruction. Those are the two things that will bite your ass. If you have low expectation, you have poor curriculum, then you cannot prosper. You will not be that's why it's a system failure. The system does not work. It doesn't work. If it works for a small number, if over 60% of your students in your district are not reading on grade level,
right,
you have a system failure.
Right.
You don't have a parent failure. You don't even necessarily have a teacher failure. You have a system failure. And what we have is a system failure. And when you talk to people in the district, they're like, we create this at the central office, and then it goes to the school, and we want to give the principals autonomy. Dude, I'm like, you giving your principals the key to the tractor trailer truck to run over to you go is what you're doing. Because that's what's going to happen. You have got, if you're going to operate a system, then operate a system. And it has to have clear vision for it. When you don't have the leadership, when you have a system that is poorly operated with this organ, and I'm gonna talk like a body. If my heart is not right, it's going to affect my liver and my kidneys and my brain. Like everything in that body, that school body, that system has to function at a high level so it doesn't shut another part of the system down. That is one of the problems. That's why I don't like systems. And we have a system that only caters to a specific part of the body. And that's why you see some people prospering and most people not.
Right.
Because when you put all your resource, your support, all of your listening and partnership in one bucket, and you don't do that with everybody, especially a part of the body that's really struggling, guess what's going to die first?
Right.
Us.
As we see year in and year out. And so I believe, Sonia, we just finished this cohort. Before we talk about this reading program, we got cohort 11 coming up this Saturday, 11 o'clock. We got the
graduation. What? Tell them what cohort. They don't know what that is. Tell them what it is.
Cohort 11, which is cohort is another word for class. Our mission, when we think about and when you see us talk about our mission and you see us work with our parents, we organize and develop powerful parents to ignite a movement that demands equitable education policies and practices in Nashville public education. And you see these parents, you see Kendall, you see Nicole, you see Hawatha, you see Miss Rollins, you see Mr. Antonio Parker. We got some really good, strong men in the group. You realize the possibilities we have when we put all these parents who are strong individually together. And so thank you guys. And again, I just want to celebrate you guys. We look forward to seeing you this Saturday. We'll be at the graduation starting at 11 o'clock, and Rhea will be sending out just more information and just to remind you.
Yeah, happy graduation. 6 weeks of powerful classes for powerful parents that I'm so proud of these parents. Yes, they are ready. They're ready for work. Some of them have already started.
Come on now. They already jumped in.
And already jumping in. And I think what I love the most is their willingness to even push through the fight or flight, right? Mm-hmm. To push through and to fight and not flight. I'm very proud of them and look forward to seeing them all on Saturday. Y'all know the Bat Cave at the spot. We're gonna send it out, but I always look forward to. I think I missed one graduation and my heart was broken because I had to miss that. I don't even remember what I missed it for, but I missed one graduation. Yeah, and I tell you, I hate missing them. So the opportunity to see the smiles and the accomplishments that these parents are making is priceless. And going into Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Lots to be thankful.
The food and the emotions. And so look forward to seeing you guys. But one of the things I wanted to bring up, and it's just a section of this article, Sonia, but it talks about the English language learners, right? And the title of it is just talking about a specific program. But if you guys can see this when we read it says language and literacy skills are vital. That means vital is an important word. That means it's life to every student's academic success, and only about 29% of all students on grade level statewide. And it is a priority of both metro schools in the state of Tennessee. But engaging non-native English speakers in reading can be hard. For years, Vanderbilt professors, researchers, they have partnered with metro school teachers to help them earn English language teacher endorsements and learn instructional skills that help teach English learners. And just that last paragraph, which I want to focus on the most, it says the curriculum is tailor-made to reinforce skills English learners need to be successful in the classroom. It emphasizes not just the process of the words, but the reading comprehension as well, and aligns with state and district standards. It also introduces engaging, diverse reading materials to students who might otherwise not always be interested in reading. And I will end it on that. And when we were reading this article and really discussing it, we realized that, 29% only 29%. So that's really 71% of the students across the state are not on grade level. And when you break that number down by kids of color, it's even worse. Like that's a statewide, so that incorporates everybody, but that is not how it looks in our community. But what I enjoy reading and I can appreciate, but I ask myself, why don't we expand things that are working? Because later on in that article, and I think our producer posted in the comments so you can read it. It just talked about how engaging they were by being engaging, by being fun, by getting creative. They saw growth, prolonged growth. And when we think about our kids' academic success and what we're not missing, it's just things that make you go,
Yeah, they make you go, just do things right. If you do it right, then you see success. We know about what to do. And this is the conversation, even across the country. Like, we know what works. Like, we're not talking about, we're not talking about something where we don't know what works. I think that's the thing that is very disheartening, discouraging.
Yeah.
It makes me angry is we know what works. We know what works.
We know what works, and that's why we got work to do. But I'll tell you one other thing that we may need to revisit coming up before the year ends. As we think about, we're talking about the school funding as a whole, right? We're talking about a budget. We're talking about, what are the programs we have for kids. But another thing I wanted to revisit, Sonya, maybe we'll do it next week. It's the ESSER funding, right? Like what is that looking like, and what impact is that having with the plan that they submitted to the state? It's so easy at times to forget. But I do remember on Access Denied a few months ago, like we going over the line items of the budget and where they were putting money. And as we talk about, student outcomes and funding systems, it'll be interesting to see where have we grown with the $400+ million. And again, it's spread over 2 or 3 years. But I would love to revisit that in the near future and just see what has happened in the first semester.
They have to September, I think, 2022.
Okay.
ESSER 1 and 2 and 3. They have to think September 2023 to spend.
Okay. So we got 2 years, but I know a lot. We talked about, high dosage tutoring. We talked about the social emotional part of it. We talked about the IEP parents, and a lot of the resources were like this is the way we finally got the funding to create a better system, an education system for our kids. And yeah, like as we talk about student funding with BEP, it'd be interesting to see what could we do with the additional resources that we receive from ESSER to make that impact.
I think we did what all bad habit money spenders do. You say you want something, and maybe you just don't have enough money to get it, right? Say, I want me a 7-bedroom house with 5-car garage. And so I get the money to get it, right? But then I don't think about, I get this one-time money. Will I be able to sustain that 7-bedroom house and 5-car garage? And do I need to put that money in what I need the most?
Right.
To really make my life prosperous, right? So I won't be a one-hit wonder and miss the opportunity to fix some things in my life that I should have used that money to do, like literacy,
Mm-hmm.
like those types of things. So I'm gonna ball out on things that I probably don't need, but things I want. I don't need a 7-bedroom house. And I
Right.
don't need 5-bedroom, garage. I mean, five car garage. I may want that, and so I think there's some of that going on.
Yeah.
Not knowing what one like needs to do in the system and not being very smart about it, and having so much money that mistakes are going to be made and there's going to be buyer's remorse.
Mm-hmm. Our good friend in St. Louis, Crystal, says, make it make sense. And so I think I got it, but I want to revisit some of this now that I got the file, and really just look at where we are based on what we said we were going to do, and the plans that have been put before us to what we can do. And so I don't know if you see this. Okay.
Yeah, blow it up a little bit. I think what's missing is there's no accountability for them to have to report this stuff out to us in real time. So does this report look any different from the time that they put it out to now, John?
No, it doesn't. And that's why when this popped back up, I looked at just where we are on tutoring, right? Before the school year started, we talked a lot about high dosage tutoring. We talked about tutoring as a whole. And again, this could be totally different, but from everyone that we talk to, we don't hear much about tutoring. But I also heard they're doing a lot of things internally during the school day when they talked about what was that program where they were calling home and connecting with parents? And it was like the navigators, right? So at the board meeting, they were like, nah, the navigator program different. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. It was like, nah, the navigators pull the kids out of the classroom for about 5 to 15 minutes and talk through.
I want a receipt. I want a receipt. I want to know. I want to see a timesheet. I want to see a receipt. Because I don't believe it.
That's what they said. That's what they told me. I was like, oh. It was like, yeah, you didn't know? I was like, nah, I didn't know. The Navigator program, I was like, but how do you really connect with parents? So that was down a rabbit hole, right? But what brought this up as we thought about it, we thought about the things that we put on there. You know, we got the tutoring, we got the summer programs, we got the early reading, interventionists, you know, the AP and dual credit, high school innovation, academic advising, special populations, mental health, strategic teacher retention, grow your own, class size reduction, technology, high-speed internet, academic space facilities. Like,
what a navigator on there.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's academics, right? They got the number of students they're gonna serve, and then they got percent of students, frequency per week. But this was the high dosage, low ratio tutor. And again, they could be doing this. I just haven't heard from the parents yet on them even getting feedback on how it's going. But if we try to go down to the, as you say, Sonia, the navigators, and I want to say that was towards the end. So we got educators, we got foundations, we have additional strategies, we got nutrition services, college and career mental health supports, maybe it's in there. Family and community engagement, which school communication, what we're hearing from our parents is on a systems level, the communication is not there. And so really looking to see where we are on that, but also get parent feedback on how it's working for you. But Sonia, I'll tell you, we'll put this link in there, but yeah, like we don't see it. I mean, they have a lot of things in here, but I think what you're saying, Sonia, like, how do we?
There it is.
Hold on, we got it. Okay, hold on. Let me pull it up.
For each section below, list the 3 investments your district will make to address the data indicated above and accelerate student achievement. They said navigators, SEL, and social workers. So, okay. So these people that, wait a minute, because you know I'm a data girl.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna tell y'all something. If you write it down on something, you're gonna mess up with me because I'm gonna figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gangster with this. I did research. So, navigator and SEL and social worker. Now go back up to SEL and social worker. If that's what you say you're gonna do, them folk pulling them out of them classes need to be equipped in social emotional learning and social workers. Go back up because they're saying that that's the navigator. Do you see it? It's on paper. Did you see it?
Mm-mm.
No, go back down. Go back down. I'm finna tie something up. What does that say? Navigators are who? And what?
SEL and social workers.
That's what that says. Student readiness. They're saying these are the things that we're going to do to accelerate learning for your student. This is what they said they're going to do. Navigators. So what they doing telling you that has changed. So navigators, SEL, and social workers. Now go up to the top.
Mm-hmm. Let me go back.
Do you hear what I'm saying about this?
Mm-hmm.
So we got people who are equipped in social emotional learning and social workers pulling kids out of classes. Because that's what you said that you was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
To accelerate learning.
Yeah.
So the question is, who is pulling the kids out of the classroom and what are they doing with them? Because social emotional learning and social worker ain't got nothing to do with personalized learning time and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, you don't see it. And even I thought with the other one, they talked about mental health supports, which ties into social emotional learning. They said counselors.
So you mean to tell me in a district, so
right.
Interventionists, where's the social worker and stuff? So interventionists, I guess they could put it in that slot on the budget. They've only spent $15,000. You got a district of 81,000 children.
Yeah, this is 15 million.
I can't see it. Blow it up.
But the thing is, even with that question, Sonia,
blow it up. Okay, I thought that was a point.
Yeah, but we haven't hired for that. Like the thing that we are ramped up the most on, as you know, are nurses, right? Every school has a nurse. We haven't ramped up on people on counselors. Like you got your guidance counselor who essentially runs the front office. Wait
a minute, that's different than a social worker.
Right.
They said the navigators, they said SEL and social workers. That is not a counselor. Right.
Come on now. Victoria says, I want to know the answer to that question as well.
Question everything.
Yep.
Question
James Brown
everybody.
says, but if they're pulling them out of class, won't they get behind in whatever class they're pulling them out of? So again, like the strategy to take it from communicating with the student, communicating with the parent to just doing pull out, it isn't aligning with the goals that they have academically.
Where are the goals academically?
Right. Well, they put that in there. It's in the plan.
No, they have not. They have not presented anybody. Everybody is asking them, what are the academic goals? Show it to me because I've never seen it. And if they've presented it, then I apologize. But I've never seen the academic goals that they have.
Yeah, and I don't think they have either. I think it's because they don't want to be tied to actually being successful. I'm gonna just say it. Like, who wants to say these are the goals and we're gonna give you guys a post check?
It says how student outcomes and success will be quantifiable measure. It says through MAP and FastBridge assessments. A goal is only measured when you talk about how much. So how many students will have what type of measurement in MAP and FastBridge? This is fragmented. And I'm going to say the Tennessee Department of Education, you're allowing these school districts to get away with a heist.
Oh yeah, thank you. That's the best word.
These are not real goals. These are not real measurable goals. Dr. Swin, I hope you're listening. This is not, you guys are allowing school districts to put stuff on paper that sound good, to say that they're going to do stuff that they never really have to do. Point blank. And we can gangster walk on that one, on up out of here, because that is what they're allowing them to do. Point blank. No responsibility whatsoever.
So this has been some, and I think it's good to continue to revisit it, but it also allows us, as Victoria says, she wants her questions answered, to like ask those questions. And even as me, as I think about like, when do we get a status update on how things are going? Because it's being reported by MAP, and it's been, I think they said the bridge assessment, and then I think they said with other schools it'll be the TN ready. So we got it's work to do. And again, just going back to the student funding, the system funding, the student outcomes, it just goes to show you that if the kids are not growing, why do we keep giving the ability for people to do a heist every year? And that's the heist is when you walk away with it and it's like a magician and nobody really knows it's gone until you check it. And unfortunately, we see the outcomes every day in our kids. We saw the outcomes during COVID when we were at home in person learning, because it was just some things that we saw in our students that they should be learning. And I think when we were going back into school and the ESSER funds were coming out, just one thing only, we talked about high dosage tutoring. And we just want to see how is it working for our communities.
I just tweeted. I'm going to say it again. Public education is the biggest heist I have ever seen. Note, I am visually impaired. So if I am visually impaired and I see that, sick of it.
We got work to do, but parents, as you're looking at this, like, join us. Is this your first time looking at the Access Denied? We do this every Wednesday at 11. Like, we have met some phenomenal people on here, people who come every week, parents who have gone through our fellowship, parents who have come to actions, and it really just started with truth finding, like wanting to find the truth not only for our kids but for the system as a whole. And as we think about it, like it's bigger than the lunch, it's bigger than playground. It's life or death when we talk about education.
It is. And Victoria, thank you for fighting for Malik and on behalf of all children, and knowing that it's just not about Malik and he's not the only one that is being affected like this. If you got something going on with your child, to everybody who's under the sound of my voice, I'm telling you, there's 100 other parents that's got a story just like yours. You are not alone, and you are not by yourself.
Yeah, maybe 1,000. Like, it's
maybe
just
1,000, but probably 100 in your circle.
Come on now. And on that, we will see you guys next Wednesday right here at 11 a.m. as we get ready for Thanksgiving. I would say come on with your recipes, but we don't want nobody bringing green bean casserole on here. Or like you said,
I love green bean casserole. You just gotta know how to fix it.
Okay, I just ain't seen it done the right way.
I'm gonna have to cook y'all some. Drive all the way to Hermitage and bring you some.
Come on.
For my car. You got to make sure you put it on his little high chair and let him eat it.
You know he's gonna put his hands all in it.
Where he at? The audience ain't seen the baby today. He ain't co-hosting. He sleep.
Yeah, he taking a nap. He was up early this morning, 5 o'clock.
All right, y'all. Love you guys. Thank you for joining us. Share and like. This is recorded, so share it and like it, and we'll see you next week.
All right.
All right.